All righty. I think good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back for another weekly DaaS Sales Workshop. Again, I see what about six or seven of you in here. I think I see a couple of new faces, definitely some repeat clients that are on quite a few of my workshops, or I've at least seen once in the past. So I'm going to go over some newer stuff and some newer, bit of sales lessons and resources, and just kind of reiterate and make sure everybody has access to the resources that I cover every week specifically for the faces that I just mentioned here are new this week. So I'm going to start with that. But again, for any of you guys that are new specifically, what I'd like to cover is my area of expertise, and what we cover on these particular weekly workshops here is all everything that it sounds like, right? Everything around the selling side of the data. So how to price it, how to package it, how to position it, how to overcome the common objections we get. Sometimes when I'm generous enough to get some volunteers, we'll go through and I'll role play these scenarios with you. It's been a while, and I mentioned that I do this, but also you guys that are actively taking sales calls and trying to sell data as a service, feel free to send me over call recordings. I can break those down and do a lesson on those on some of the weekly workshops. And I know the couple people that have taken me up on that in the past found that very helpful. So again, that's kind of what my side of the equation is, and these workshops all around the sales side of things, whether that be specific to data or just overall sales, approaches, strategies, tactics, and then I just kind of convert them more into the DaaS agency model and selling from that perspective. So the first thing that I go over and I give away every week, for again more specific for you new faces, I'm going to go grab the link right now and go drop this in the chat so everybody has it, and then I'll just run through and explain this in a quick 2 minutes or less, preferably, because this is the redundant part of the call for all of you guys that do attend every week. I go through this, kind of the beginning of every week here. But if you look in the Zoom chat, there's a link to a Google Doc, which is what you're seeing here on my screen and what I'm about to go over. So again, what I did is lay out the resources here for you guys to build your DaaS sales process. Now, I say this is very applicable to if you just came into DaaS last week and you're building your whole sales process from scratch, or you already had an existing agency that you just kind of bolted data as a service on as another feature, deliverable line item that you can offer. And anybody that has an existing sales team, I think you're going to find some things you can either revamp or improve in terms of efficiency or effectiveness in your sales process. So that's what this was built out to do, and that's what these resources are. Number one is a Google Doc, just very simply laying out step 1, 2, 3, 4, the exact sales process that I would recommend building out, and how I built our sales team from scratch. I built it from this exact process and how you see on the document. Some of you guys know I was one of, if not the first Audience Lab sales rep. It was me, Jesse, and then we brought in one guy who's now back on the team, Danny, as well. A few years later, he left the company, did his own thing, came back when he realized our software and our product was even stronger than where he was a few years ago when he first started. But anyway, I started selling data. I started as one of the initial reps, and now I've built a team underneath me that's taking calls full time, that I just kind of oversee and manage, etc. So number one is that. Number two, guys, is me going over a brief little tutorial and elaborating on that doc, screen sharing and showing you what that different part of the sales process looks like throughout the process. Showing you or elaborating on anything in the document's sake, I might have kept in short definition form, but I thought people would want me to elaborate or expound upon. Number three, as I talk about, we always want to share with you some of the creative that we're putting in and day out that is allowing us to bring in new data clients, again, day in and day out. So through running, I would say these different types or avenues of creative that I share with you here. That's some of the best and most effective and current things we're doing, kind of a mix of all those to get to get new data clients and to get calls booked into our sales team's calendar. I try to share the end of month results, and guys who have been on my workshops and been on for the end of, end of results from August, end of results from July. You guys know that our sales team, we book in, somewhere between 300 and 450 sales calls per month into our sales team. Well, number three, 3 on here. This is the creative that we're running to ultimately book in, 350 plus sales calls per month into our sales team's calendar. So you'll see copy of like 9 different creatives and ad sets. The top 2 were just updated within the last 14 days with some of our newer creative and campaigns, but the other ones in there are all still running, effective, and got very positive ROI. If we have an ad campaign that flops or doesn't perform, you're never going to see it in this document. I'm only showing the active and profitable ones, and usually they're all active. Sometimes some might get, the ad set might get shelved for a little while, but if it's on here, it's a profitable one that's effective. Showing you some of our emails that we've had the most success with, and for different objectives, a warm audience, getting webinar registrations, how to do nurture sequence, workshop emails, and then some of the more short form, I would say cold email that we do both, LinkedIn as well as cold email B2B outreach. So some of the, creative and templates that we've seen work well. You guys will see that I recommend a 2-call sales process. Call number 1, the triage call, there's your script, your framework already proven and set up to close data deals. Call number 2, your actual sales call or your demo call. Here's the script or the framework already built out for you. Number 6, a copy of our pitch deck, which most of you guys have probably already seen by now. If you haven't, a short little, 12 to 15 slide pitch deck that nothing is branded to Audience Lab. Download it, make your own copy. Swap out the first slide with your own company logo, brand, imaging, whatever. But just a short little pitch deck on how you can show your clients in a very, professional slide presentation exactly how we can target and find their ideal audience. How we can then take that audience and loop it into their ad and marketing campaigns. How we can resolve identities of their bounce visitors. A half dozen or a dozen different case studies that we put in there that you guys can leverage. Number 7 is more about our Super Pixel, our identity resolution tool. And that lesson is more about how you guys can charge and price that, but also the resource I go through in that particular tutorial. Down in the description, you will see the link to that resource. That's called our Pixel Forecast Calculator. So I always tell people, if you're ever unsure if the Pixel is going to be a great fit, a home run, have a real positive ROI for a client, pull out this calculator, go through the tutorial, get the 4 pieces of data that I recommend getting from the client, throw those into this spreadsheet calculator, and it's going to show you down at the bottom. This is the rough guesstimate of how much revenue they're leaving on the table by not using the tool. So it's a really great tool for you to gauge, for your client or prospect, if the Pixel is worth pitching and it's going to be a home run, and then also giving you some strategy for how to go price this if you're just selling kind of identity resolution a la carte as a feature. Number 8, there's a document, Google Doc, with 20 or so of my sales calls recordings. So I still take a couple weeks every quarter where I block off all my managerial duties and I put myself back into my sales team's calendar and I go in and close deals. So I know a lot of my clients have found that helpful in terms of the verbiage or my just approach and style, the terminology I use, etc. And then, as you guys know, 2 weeks ago, I dropped the newest Audience Lab script. So you could kind of replace number 5 here with this one if you want. I haven't gone through and totally updated everything 100% in terms of like the notes I give on customizing the pitch. I think are going to be a little more thorough in the one, number 5, the one that's already been there for a while, as opposed to this new one. But why I like this new one a little better, and what you guys can do is take, number 5 on my screen here, and then number 9 on my screen, the newer one, and kind of piece together, an updated version that's combining the best of both worlds. But all number 9 is, as opposed to number 5, as I told you guys, and as I've been teaching on the last 2 weeks lessons. And if you go back into the school channel, I'll show you where you can find them real quick if you want to. The last 2 lessons is just me going over that new framework. Every couple of years, I write a new framework or a new script based on the trends, nuances, intricacies, and differences I'm seeing in the sales high ticket, sales space. More specifically with this one, what I would say is the biggest difference is just condensing things down, making it shorter, more concise. What I've noticed, and that's one of the biggest trends in high ticket sales calls over the last 3 years, is the length of the call and how much you talk and how quick we can get right into things. I think as the market and the sophistication level evolves, people just want a short, concise conversation. They don't want to feel like they're being interviewed or interrogated, or they already know what you're going to say next. Like, what I'm trying to do is build in scripts and frameworks that fit with the time, that still help you stand out and help you get the most effectiveness and efficiency out of the call. So as I've been explaining this, Doc, I know I've admitted a few more of you into the Zoom room. And in case you did not already get this link, this link to the document I covered, I put in the chat earlier. I'm going to go drop it again because I know if you come in after I drop a link, you can't, I don't think you can see the prior communication and links in the chat. So this document I just went over, for anybody that doesn't have it, lost it, or wants to save it again and you know, star it and go through the resources, that's right there in the Zoom chat for everybody. Now, as I go, I'm probably going to split and do maybe two little Q&A sections. I always leave room at the end. But if there's anything you came to this call hoping that I was going to cover, and you have any specific, you know, any specific topics or questions that you really want me to cover, just go type a 1 in the Zoom chat and I will call on you. Or as we go, if you have any questions on the lesson and the resources and the stuff I'm covering today, anything you want me to expound upon, just go also put that in the chat and I'll make sure I call on you. Monica, you have something right now you want me to address or a question you want? Feel free to go ahead.
Well, it doesn't have to happen now, but if now works, that's fine.
Go ahead.
I have a new client. I sold him one new list every 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I was trying to figure out like the best timing on it all. And so I got one new list every 2 weeks. He's paying me every 2 weeks because he didn't have enough money to pay me like upfront for all the lists. And so I created an audience. I have one, and because I haven't done this before, I'm a little nervous about every week or every 2 weeks I have to give him a new list. How much is that list changing? Do I like go in and remove the duplicates, or do I, just send it to them and they upload it in their CRM?
Yeah, so how much that list is changing is really contingent on, number one, is that next list, let's say we pull a list on the 1st and the 15th, and we're doing similar or I would say relatively identical audiences. With the 15th, what I would do is get all the new and updated data just from the last 15 days, and I would start with that. That way we're going to have no duplicates. What you can also do is you can also add in or change some parameters. So with the list you built on the first, let's say, and the one you've already done, you might have a certain demographic, a certain in-market audience. You might have certain parameters in terms of the credit score of the buyers or the location or geography. So you can also change some of those parameters and or keywords to build a new list with, so you're going to get a lot less repeats and open yourself up to a new market. So number one, I would start with the fresh data so there's no repeats. And on that second list, just go back from anybody in the last 15 days. That means they shouldn't be repeats from that list that you did 15 days ago. And then secondly, that you can also adjust the list according to different parameters, keywords, intent features, etc.
How do you do that? Like, is there a way inside Audience Lab where I can say, give me a brand new list and don't give me any repeats from last time?
There, it's not quite as simple as that, but there is a way to do it. It's not something I can explain in just 2 or 3 minutes here. But I think I've already sent you, if I'm not mistaken, the information to get with my support team, and you should have a one-on-one booking link with them in the email I sent you. You and I did a one-on-one call, correct?
No,
Now, when did you enroll into the program?
I don't know. A couple months ago.
Okay, well, if you're in any of our DaaS levels, which I'm guessing you are, our DaaS programs, you should have had a one-on-one call with myself. So what I'll do is I'll go look up after the call. I'll go find you in school, and I'm just putting a note now with your first and last name to make sure I got it right. And I'll send you that information. But normally, and a majority of our DaaS clients, and I see actually there's a couple of people on this call. Brooke's a great example. Brooke, you must be relatively new. I see you on my calendar for later this week. I'm guessing you just enrolled sometime within the last 7 to 10 days tops. And that's what should happen. So after you had your onboarding call, Monica, whoever onboarded you on my team, not sure if it was Andrew, Rowe, Jaden, we have a few support guys, you would have received an email right after that call with some information to reach out to me and book a one-on-one call. Maybe you missed that email. Maybe you never booked it, whatever happened. I'm going to make sure I go get you all that information again. When I wrap up that call, I give you guys all the information on how to reach out for the support you're asking for right now. So I'm just going to defer for now because that's not necessarily my skill set. There's other guys on the team that do that all day and can show you how exactly to get that data with, excluding repeats. Again, there's a way to do it. It's just not quite as simple as you worded. I wish it was just that simple to no repeat data. There's some other filters and some other things you have to do. So I'm going to make sure you get all the information with the one-on-one call with me, and then I'm going to make sure you get all the information so I can get you to my one-on-one support guys that can walk you through exactly how to do that and how to differentiate your lists.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Good, good, good. It's a little more confusing if you haven't had that call with me and haven't received the information. Of course, you're not going to know what to click or where to go book.
Okay, thank you.
Just making sure I have your last name spelled right. Well, I'm guessing there's going to be nobody in school with a very similar last name. So I think we'll be good. I think I got it. I'll go get you all that information shortly after this call here today.
Okay, thank you, Ray.
Great. Then we had Tara. I have a question about pricing strategy for a specific client. Let's start with that. Go ahead.
All right. Hi. So the specific question is, I haven't actually talked numbers with this person, but she's all on board. We've already talked like kind of all the other stuff except for the numbers part of it. And she does want to include like a percentage based on sales. And right now she's kind of in a sales conundrum. I don't know. She's totally shifting gears. So there's a whole new chance to like lean into that. But not obviously, but I do want to make sure that some of my hard costs are covered as well.
Yeah,
and
of
then
course.
she wants me to be involved in running, kind of helping her run the campaign and all that as well. We want to kind of use this as like a proof of concept to then franchise out with and do other things of that nature. So there's like a long-term potential with this as well, but I'm old enough not to put all my eggs in one basket and to think that they're all gonna whatever else. So I want to make sure that like, but I'm also willing to take like that a little bit more of an investment in terms of like a startup issue where like she also like doesn't want to do the marketing. She wants to like off-put that. So I don't feel like she's just gonna like use me and abuse me sort of thing.
Well, that's a good thing.
Right. I know what to look for now. No, but I just wanted to like before when I position the cost like metrics, like I mean, I want her to pay for the advertising and for any sort of external costs and things like that. But in terms of like, what can I ask her for like reoccurring monthly, like just the $1,000 just to kind of cover the credit, and then like a percentage on that thereafter. And then I would assume, I mean, obviously every deal is different. So whether I would take like, 80% commission and then 0% monthly, or do I get monthly of a couple thousand and then 10% commission? So just it's for gutter replacement or gutter guards rather. So it's kind of not a huge high ticket item, but fairly, but then again, not repeat customers. So we're looking, so it's not like I'm just going to build to this big audience and then, so one time. So with your expertise, I would like you to put like a little price stamp on my head for me, because if I have you telling me this is what you're worth, then I can sell that no problem. But if I have a whole bunch of self-confidence. It's the self-worth part that sometimes I struggle with. So I'm looking to you because that way I know that, I'll have that confidence, and then we can negotiate from there. And I think, she's totally, again, I don't feel like there's gonna be like a teeth pulling operation or a high convincibility, but I want to be fair about it and also looking for that futuristic long-term.
Well, fair to the client, but also charge what you're worth and not undercut yourself.
Exactly. Because
so let's just break this down a little, because you covered a lot there and you covered some of the long-term plan. What are the initial deliverables and promise, and what are we starting with this client?
So part of her overhaul is that her existing website, the person that she was working with just kind of abandoned her with nothing. And so she's kind of been trying to mess with it, but like with your own product, it's just never quite good enough. And so I've taken that over this week. And so we're going to rebuild her website so that when we get these leads in, it's functional. And, that's helpful. Right? There's no reason in pouring money into a hole. And so I'm doing that part of it. I'm going to help her.
I guess let me just clarify specifically on the data side of things. Like, what are the deliverables and the features? Because I'm not going to price your web services. You already know that stuff. You know what I mean? I don't do web builds personally. I'm not going to go price something I don't sell or pitch. But specifically the data features, I can help, and give you a ballpark there and how I would pitch it.
Well, first of all, I am outsourcing that portion of it, but
whenever I outsource, this is my thought process. Whatever my fee is, I'm tacking on a minimum of 20%.
Right.
Again.
But so as far as the data points of it, I did work with Jaden yesterday and we narrowed down to fairly, again, with gutter guards, it's fairly specific and with her geographical location, blah, blah, but we got a pretty solid list of like really good leads that we're going to start with. And so that's where we're starting with. And then we also talked about the campaigns and being kind of more focused on like a direct outreach, again, being like specific as opposed to doing like meta ads or things like that. But doing more of like that, direct mail, cold outreach, email
Direct email,
campaigns,
that
or
kind of
even
stuff. Yep.
direct, blah, blah, blah. So starting with that aspect of it. So I'm going to help her with that and just kind of create some of these campaigns and like kind of keep that going. She has 25 years experience doing this. So, I mean, she's a good seller. She can close the deals once we get them. And,
so you're starting off
right
with
now
just basically one list or one audience to start to run some direct marketing campaigns in terms of email, the other avenues you talked about. That's kind of where you're starting.
Exactly. And like with her just kind of getting sort of a revamp and a redirection, just kind of to focus on like a certain kind of area. And then that way kind of really see what is working and what's not working, as opposed to like, well, we have all these things out here and something's working, but we're not quite sure what.
Yeah. And then we can, as you said, down the road, we can turn this into, more lucrative deals, more features, more, more of everything, more campaigns. It sounds like you're going to be kind of full stack with this, like not only providing the data, but helping run the marketing campaigns, helping oversee that, the web development. What I can tell you on the data side of things, for somebody just starting off, you want to prove yourself, you want to be fair. I would never charge less than $750 per audience. So just a la carte, saying that that's covering your hard costs, that's actually leaving you profits. That's more than your hard costs, but a minimum of 750. If you think you can get a little more and it's fair, especially if you've already kind of run the audience with and you have the size of it and it's very large and dialed in, you could probably charge a little more. I would just never charge less than that. This is how I would present this. Hey, Tara, what I want to do is build you a dialed in market audience of your ideal clients and then run some direct marketing to them, some mailers, some email, some yada, 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 whatever we suggest. And this is how I think it could work out. I'm only going to charge you my hard cost of $750 per list and then 25% of all the back end revenue that I drive in. And that's where I would start with this one. I would start at $750 per list or audience and then 25% of all the revenue that you drive in via your marketing, via your data and your marketing campaigns. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Because yeah, that's a great place to start. And like you said, with the whole reaching out, with her being in the home service industry for 25 years, she's got all the other connections and all that other great
so
stuff.
once you get the person into her funnel, she knows how to close deals and fulfill on the offer.
Yeah,
so those are your ideal partners, guys. That's what you always want to make sure before you're selling data to people is number one, do they have a budget or a way to reactivate it and a plan built out? Or do we have to do that all for them? And then you need to figure out, as DaaS agencies, is that within my skill set and what I want to take on? But number two, only work with clients that have the experience to close deals, to fulfill on their profession. I mean, their services, et cetera, et cetera. It gets into real trouble when they expect you to come in and be like the business hero. Oh, help me with marketing, lead gen, advertising, sales, fulfillment. Like, we're not here to run their business for them. We're exactly. But you're going to get clients like that are looking for every aspect and looking you to come in and be the saver. It's like, no, we're a data provider and a reactivation agency primarily, right? If you guys do stuff outside of that yourselves, Facebook ads, web development, sure, charge and get what you're worth for there. But I'm talking about specifically from the DaaS services from Audience Lab. I mean, that's what we're designed to do, provide data and reactivate that data.
Well, that's kind of where I landed on this, because I started with the bigger, like, just digital marketing, but that's where you end up with people that have like 3 employees and no budget and blah, blah, blah. And like, I don't, I mean, time is the same amount of time. I'd rather get top dollar for it, right? I mean, I want to help out, don't get me wrong, but there's people that do that better. And
I think what you're saying there is setting a very good threshold, all of us as business owners, for who our ideal clients is and who we want to be working with. And if people don't fit that mold, let's not go outside of our box and say, oh, I'm going to help this person and work for less money. I think a lot of times we compromise as business owners really quickly on like what we say. And then when we have a chance to close a deal, oh, it's outside of my scope of work, but I'm going to take it anyway. I would advise people not to compromise unless you're just having no success at all with going after your ideal market for whatever. You're just getting no calls booked or no positive replies, no closed deals. Then maybe you compromise and you go for that sophistication level before. Maybe we overshot, but I don't really think there's overshooting. I actually feel like 80% of our DaaS agencies kind of cut themselves short with their expectations, thinking, oh, a big corporate brand would never want to work with me. I think you're wrong about that. And I think a lot of times that's a misconception. Many of you guys may know, but one of our first clients when we rolled out Ads Lab, before we were an Audience Lab, we didn't have the audience builder. We just had the Super Pixel. McDonald's was one of our first clients. We were a brand new startup. Do you think we were hesitant to say McDonald's can't use our shit? Once we showed it to them and they saw the impact, they went for it right away. It didn't matter that we were a new startup. It mattered that our technology and our solution offered them an end result. So I think a lot of times we say, this company, I'm not established enough. I'm not big enough yet. I don't have enough proof of concept. Does your solution solve a problem for them and offer an end result they can't go without? If the answer is yes, Shoot for it. Shoot for it. Shoot bigger than you think. You'd be surprised. Our first 8 months in business, we went strictly to Fortune 500 and 1,000 companies, and that's how we got our proof of concept that the technology and the stuff works. Before we ever started to selling you guys, the agency owners, that's where we built proof of concept. And did we start small? No. Our first 20 outreach messages were to Walmart, McDonald's. I mean, they were the hitters in this space, and we found that there was need for our stuff. They didn't vet out how long we've been in business, or all this stuff. They're like, oh, this shit, nobody's told me this before. This can definitely help. How do I find out more, Ray? Well, you sign up here and let me embed it into your website. That's how we find, and it was a really quick process. So I think we all tend to do that sometimes starting out is, we kind of undervalue ourselves. You said you have the right value, but not necessarily the right self-worth, right? And I think you're talking kind of into what I'm saying. I know there's, we could differentiate ends of the spectrum there, but I just kind of wanted to reiterate that message. You guys can go for bigger companies and bigger brands than you think. And I think a lot of times we don't have enough confidence in ourselves, maybe, but the product is backed, proven, and all these big companies or their competition is using it. That's why what I say to a lot of my businesses, when I speak to them, well, Ray, I'm not sure if this is necessarily going to help us. And let's just say I'm on with a big brand Target. Well, it might not help you, but Walmart's using it and they're crushing you right now in cost per acquisition. So do you want your competitor to keep getting the edge and paying less to acquire a customer? Or do you want to get on par and access to the same data Walmart has, right? And whatever. I say that now, not necessarily to a brand like Target. Let's say I was talking to anybody in retail, but I always kind of compare the category king. Well, your competition is using this data and you're not, and that's why they're paying less to acquire a customer. How are you going to compete, Tara, if you can never get on the same level with what you spend to acquire a customer?
Right. No,
Cool.
AI and I just wrote a book recently about how actually positioning yourself and valuing your expertise and your services and things like that actually makes people want to pay you more and puts you into a actually less competitive market. And so sometimes positioning yourself makes it your job actually easier, less stressful, and more lucrative. So, those are the things sometimes I think AI is actually the best for. When it tells you things you should be telling yourself. But again, that's and also like you were speaking to, whereas a business owner, you're still a person. And so there's that compassionate where you're like, oh, well, I know how to do this. And I know how easy it actually is. So here, let me just help you. So again, that's where if I have like a price sticker on my head, it's like, don't do it for less than this. Like, okay, I can do that. Just as though it was like any other product that you get to sell in the market as a hard product or whatever. I mean, they're not going to let you come back and be like, well, I felt bad, so I just gave it to them. That's not going to fly. So, but thank you. That's exactly what I needed. And I will let you know
Beautiful.
how that goes.
All right, Nick, you had your hand up waiting patiently for a while, Dive, and you have a question?
I did. How are you, Ray?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for asking. Appreciate that.
So I'm glad we went down this path because this is sort of the challenge that I've been looking at. When I first came into Audience Lab, my initial intent from the very, very beginning was how do I repurpose this data, right? How do we take the data and enrich it, enhance it, bundle it?
I remember this conversation.
Now we're doing now you have how do you take the DaaS and do the Zoom Info white label version, if you will, or something like that. I do not have a shortage of potential clients. I probably have 40 or 50 active in my pipeline right now. My challenge is, and this is where I'm trying to make a decision, and I think you clarified it a little bit, is my expertise is in the data analytics side. It's definitely not in the social media, the pixelation, all that other crap, which I think is extremely subjective. And my challenge I deal with clients is that they've already gone down that path with an agency in some capacity. And it's like, well, it didn't work before. Why do I think it's going to work now? And then I'm having that conversation. So what I'm really trying to do with the data is figure out one or two or three unique components of what we can offer that just isn't available anywhere else. Like, is it in like the LinkedIn profile data, or is it in the deep verified business email addresses? Because what I'm learning is that I do not want to manage I don't want to be their in-house SDR, their developmental.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But that's what a lot of these companies ultimately need. So, is that something that's sort of where the challenge is, because what I can provide them with data is great, but I'm giving you the data, but you have to be able to weaponize the data, right? How are you going to take it and monetize it with money? if I give you 100 qualified high intent leads for whatever business credit, for example, that's one of my clients. And we found all these people looking for business credit, but if they don't have the ability to pick up the phone, do outbound dialing, emailing, texting, whatever it is to communicate with it, then the data isn't going to really matter, right? So
I would agree with that.
so the question really is, if there was one thing that you were going to build the foundation of the business around from a data perspective, what would be that piece that you
Like the
think
standout moment that what we have and nobody else does, kind of that
yeah,
thing.
or just something that, because everybody needs clients. We don't, doesn't
Yeah,
matter
yeah,
what
yeah.
business you're in, and if I don't care
Oh
if you're
yeah, but
selling.
that's a basic one, what you said. Everybody, we can show 18 different ways to acquire clients, but what's the one that we're focusing on and why,
Yeah, what
right?
makes us different? What makes us functionally different besides price, right? What can we do from that's quantifiable or
Yeah,
that
the one thing that might
verifiable?
help me answer this question even more specifically to your case here, Nick, is you mentioned that a lot of these people you're in conversations with have already went with an agency and been underwhelmed, let's just say, right? Maybe
Yeah.
overpromised and underdelivered, and like what's going to be different this time. So what I want to know is, again, generally, probably every case is a little different, but are you seeing something generally with what type of agency they've tried before? And was that agency backed by in-market first-party data, or was it just were they just scraping emails from this, or were they just running generic Facebook campaigns? So I would need to know a little more about
Yeah,
that
and
to get.
I'm trying not even to go. I was trying not to even go down that path and treat
Okay,
it as a data. Like they can buy the data. We
we
can
don't have to then.
the data and say, here's the data. You do what you want to do with the data, right? I'm not going to tell you how you should take the data and reach out to the data list. I mean, that's for you to decide. I don't know who your sales team
Yeah,
is.
so the
I
one
don't
thing
even
I
know what
would
kind of
say in
product
these
you have.
conversations that I'm always very focused and aware of, and I kind of want to set as boxes to tick before I maybe move forward and sell data to a client is number one, hey Nick, if I were to give you a list of your ideal audience and leads, how would your team be reaching out to them and how would you remarket to them? So I want to ask that and see what they're open to. What are you currently doing to acquire clients? If they're not currently running ads, running emails, running SMS marketing, they don't have a call center. If they have none of that, they're probably already disqualifying themselves from a good data client. So I want somebody that already has the infrastructure for the same thing you said. And what I always say to clients, Nick, I can give you all this data, but if you don't know have the wherewithal to weaponize and monetize that data and get a positive ROI, you're never going to come back and buy more and you're not going to get value in it. So if I'm to give you this, what are your thoughts on how you would use it or what are you currently doing? And I want a solid answer there and a game plan from them. Again, that is more in the mold, guys, for the hands-off, low-fulfillment data agency where we don't want to provide it and have to run in there and reactivate it and market it and as you said, basically be an SDR for this business. That's not what we're trying to do. I would say if we have more of a full stack agency, we're doing some of those things, but not even as far as a full SDR. We might be doing a little more of the managing ad campaigns, email, autoresponders, things like that. But again, Nick, I think we really want to make sure that we're speaking with companies. So out of those 40 you said are already in your pipeline, what percentage, just off the top of your head, ballparking it, would you say kind of hit those prerequisites that they already have some type of marketing or a team that can take this data and do something? Because those are the percentage I would be focused on first.
I would say that I would be comfortable with based on what I believe they're capable of doing. I would say, because I'm looking at this data as being like milk, it's going to spoil, right? If they don't,
That's correct
we
too.
have a
You're
window
right.
of opportunity, right? So if you can't take this and process it within 3 to 5 days, then it's going to be worthless for all intents and purposes. Might as well go bowl another list, right? So speed to market is extremely important for this. So different industries, I would say probably 25%, maybe
Okay.
20%.
So let's say we get in conversations with that 25%. This is kind of what I'm pointing out, which is different from any other agency or likely any other data provider. I don't know. Again, I don't know if their other agency was backed by data, if that was part of it, or if it was just an ad or an email or a copy agency. But regardless, number one, where we really stand out, Nick, is the historical accuracy and the match rates of our data. So whether you're using just some generic scrape data or generic, Facebook ad campaigns, letting them find your ideal audience, or whether you've tried other data platforms such as competitors of Zoom Info as Apollo. The difference between Audience Labs data is the accuracy and the match rates. So number one, with Zoom Info, let's just say that they said, hey, I tried a different data provider, Zoom Info, but it wasn't a good ROI. Well, Nick, do you know what the actual historical accuracy of that data is? When you took let's say, 10,000 emails from Zoom Info and blasted them into email campaigns, how many actually were the accurate person and hit back to their inbox? So I want to show you that our data is about 2 to 3x in terms of accuracy. And then the second aspect of that is the match rate. So number one, our data accuracy throughout the platform is approximately 75%. Different categories, it could be above or below, but just generally speaking, it's about 75% accurate. So let's just say I pull this list of 10,000 and give it to you, Nick, and we know we have 75% accuracy. That means 7,500 of those things are going to go to the right news feed or the right inbox or the right, profile, what have you. Now that we're hitting that, what are the actual match rates that my email is hitting, Nick's, primary SMS inbox? They're actually the right cell phone number. What are the match rates that it's hitting back to Nick's profile feed when he's scrolling Facebook or Instagram or whatever we run this ad? What are the match rates that we're actually hitting Nick's primary email inbox, the one that he opens and checks, not the one that he has from Comcast 6 years ago, right? So number one, our data, and I can send you a graphic if I haven't already so you can show this to people. Sometimes
That would
it's
be
cool
awesome,
to bring
just
up
to
on
make
the
sure I
screen.
have it. If you want to put it in
Sure.
the chat or if for anybody else too.
Yeah, I'll try it. I'll see if I can bring it up before the end of the call. Otherwise, I'll send it to you and go post it
So
in school
based on what you
afterwards.
so that's a great, those are all great
But I
points.
think our accuracy and our match rates is where we stand out. And that's the biggest differentiator in whether this data turns into money and positive ROI. If the data is shit accuracy or I'm not getting good match rates and actually hitting my message back to Nick's inbox and Nick's newsfeed, I'm not going to make money off this data. And I can show you a graphic where ours is 2 or 3xing ZoomInfo, Apollo, LiveRamp, all the other competitors in those two categories. Any data provider, Audience Lab, or any other one out there, those are the two key foundations that really determine the effectiveness and the level of said data provider.
One last question relative to that. Can you take somebody's existing data set and do a data enrichment on it and validate it through that as well?
You should be able to. Now, when you say existing data set, as long as we have in that data set, we have valid email or valid SMS number to run through the enrichment, yes, we can.
Yeah, so somebody has maybe they pixelated it off a website and they have data, or maybe they bought another list of static data from, list source or something, for example, right? We can, if we have an email address and or mobile number, then we can enhance that. We can do a data enrichment or
Correct.
I guess a data enhancement and rerun that through, and then it'll append all that data. Is that correct?
Yeah, it'll spit out the other components that we don't have. So let's just say we entered email, 10,000 emails and Nick's. So we enter Nick's email, the enrichment's going to spit out on the other end. This is the email you mentioned, you entered. This is the SMS number that aligns with it. This is the LinkedIn profile. This is the other email addresses, and it'll show us all the other data sets that we have in our super graph that correlate to said email address. Yes.
So that
and when I'm doing the enrichment, I would recommend only using one of the two, either or, but I've seen email perform a little better in SMS in terms of the way the enrichment feature spits back out the data. I've had it locate and pinpoint and just give me more robust information off of emails than SMS. I wouldn't recommend using both simultaneously because sometimes that can cross out the data and confuses it and it diminishes the amount you're going to get on the back end.
But if you have a business email address, for example, that somebody gives you, you could take that list of business email addresses and do an enhancement of the data and append all that with all the other data that we would normally get through the download, correct?
Correct. And a lot of times we can take that B2B email and track it back to their consumer profile as well and get their consumer information.
Perfect.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks, Ray.
Great. Now, I think I kind of covered, let me check that question you had in there. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right, if it's Manuela. I'm not 100% sure, so don't get mad. Say again?
Manjula.
Okay, great.
It took me 5 years to learn my own name, so you're good.
Perfect. That makes me feel a little better about it. So you kind of just mentioned like how we stack up against ZoomInfo and other companies providing intent data. Let me tell you a couple ways. I think number one, I just highlighted it. Our data accuracy and match rate is much higher than ZoomInfo, and I can prove that and give you a graphic that backs that up that you can share with people. I think number two is our cost per profile is way, way lower than ZoomInfo. So our cost is lower, our accuracy is higher. And then in terms of the intent side of things, there are other data companies, and I'm not going to pick out any specifically ZoomInfo or Apollo, because I would have to go in and verify right in front of me what's changing. There's things always changing. But what a lot of these other data companies, I would say a majority are kind of mixing in market with intent. So in market doesn't necessarily equate to intent, but other data providers are saying, hey, we can get you intent data, and they're only giving them in market. There is a differentiator, and I think it's important to highlight that. We can get in market data and then just pull out of that just the intent base. So meaning let's just say we're running an audience for somebody, you know, in the solar industry. We start off with a big in-market audience of anybody affiliated with with solar. That means they could be affiliated with that because they work in that industry. They could have a brother in that industry. They could type it often in their job title, or they could actively be a consumer searching for it. All those and more would get lumped into an in-market audience. I think we can all agree that not all those people have intent to make a purchase in solar. So now we can take that in-market audience at Audience Lab, things a lot of other platforms can't do, and we could say, hey, out of those 500 people, 500,000, because it would be a big list if we just did solar as an in-market. It'd probably be over 500,000 people on that list. But let's say there's 500,000 on there. Now, Manjwala, I still did it wrong. I can just get you all the people out of these 500,000 that search these few keywords in the last 15 days per se. So I would say, hey, Mr. Customer, what are the top 3 keywords that people search for when they look for your company? And they might say, solar panels, solar installation, and solar quote. All right, now I want to take everybody out of this 500,000 person audience and just give you the people who had searched these 3 keywords in the last 15 days. And then lastly, we can also layer our audience by up to about 200 different parameters. Whereas within major advertising platforms such as Facebook and Google, we can, I know in Facebook specifically, I haven't actually been in Google myself and run a Google ad. I know my team does, so I don't want to speak on that personally. I know they're very similar. But within Facebook's native targeting parameters now, we can only pick out 5 different parameters that we can target in there. Whereas when I started, it was over 20 different parameters when I started running Facebook ads. Now it's down to 5. So in our platform, we can extrapolate all those parameters to just make sure we're getting your ideal audience. What do I mean by that? I don't mean just name, email, phone number, hashed email. I mean, we can go as far as race, gender, income, marital status, credit score, zip code, VIN number of the vehicle they're driving, and on and on. So we can get everybody in market. Then we can just get you the people that search these intent keywords, and we can make sure they fit your ideal parameters, whether that be financially, like credit score and income, whether that be geographically, because I only help people in Texas, whatever that is. So I think we have the ability to layer our intent keywords where other people and a lot of other data providers are just giving you large, vague in-market audiences and calling that intent. There's a big difference. So those are the 3 things I would really highlight: the accuracy and match rates, the difference between in-market and intent, and then, you know, to take it a step further, how we can really layer that audience 3. I like to call it a 3-layered audience, kind of like a cake, right? You have a layer of icing, layer cake, layer of icing, and it's kind of 3 tiers. Ours is in-market, then intent, and then all your parameters to make sure the end result is just the ideal audience and preferably bottom of the funnel ready to go buyers. So I'm hoping that answered your question there.
Yeah, I mean that's helpful. I still don't, you know, like there are other providers saying similar things. So I was just wondering if there's something in there that, you know, like Zoom Info maybe. I mean, in my opinion, it's almost impossible to know what another company is doing internally.
It can be. It can be very difficult. I'll give you that.
It's not possible. I mean, I've built software companies and things, and I know that our competition does what our competition does. We can guess, we can estimate, but it doesn't mean, you know, in 3 weeks they won't change their algorithm and do it differently. So, I mean, what I use in that is I'm like, I can't tell you, you know, as 100% surety what they are doing. I can tell you what I think is happening, and then you can run a test side by side and you tell me which one is better.
I agree. And I have a great example. I don't see him on this call. Let me scroll through. But either way, I don't think he would mind if I shared his name. I don't see him here. Benjamin Beasley, a newer client that came into Audience Lab less than a month ago, right around the beginning of September. Now, Ben was a past Zoom Info user prior to us. This was a great example. Ben used Zoom Info, pulled about 20,000 emails of what he thought was his ideal clients, ran it out with some very dialed in messaging that I agree with him would convert and should convert. And his metrics off of 20,000 emails through Zoom Info was a 21% open rate and a 6% click-through rate. He then decided to try Audience Lab. He wanted to do the same sample size, so he didn't change his copy and he didn't change the amount. He built a list of 20,000 people through Audience Lab, blasted it out. He had a 40% open rate, so about 2x, but more importantly, this number, a 31% click-through rate, where before he was getting a 6%. So his click-through rate 5x. He didn't change anything. He didn't change the amount of emails he sent. He didn't change the copy. All he did was switch the provider where he pulled the data from Zoom Info to Audience Lab. So that's one great example I can show you from a campaign that the guy put eyeballs on right in front of me, and I saw those metrics. The graphic I was talking about, which I sent to everybody in that email after that call I was talking about, that some of you guys may not have scheduled yet. Some of you guys are on my calendar, et cetera, et cetera. Did I share all my screen? Hold on one second. I think I shared all. Can you guys see this graphic on my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So when you're saying that you're not sure what other companies are doing internally, I'm sure most of you guys aren't. We have access to being kind of in the loop with their dev teams, their coding teams, and we actually kind of get together, us, Zoom Info, Audience Lab, and we're always checking what each other's doing. So I would say this is only happening about twice a year, every 6 months or so. We can go in and basically tell you, in this case, I don't have Audience Lab and Zoom Info on this particular graphic. I can get it. But this one does have 3 other competitors: retention, snitcher, and lead forensics. Now, if we talk about just the average cost per match or per identified profile, ours is a little over a penny per match, our cost. There's 25 cents per match. There's 10 per match. There's 20 per match. So those costs are already way higher to get the end profile or resolution they're looking for. The historical accuracy is insane and off the charts compared to one another. Do we get full contact information, meaning name, email, phone number, and hashed email that we can use in advertising campaigns? Yes. Retention gives you just email. Snitcher and lead forensics give you a couple of the 3, but not all of them. And that has to do with the method on how their data is being kind of, sourced and then segmented. A lot of people are still using cookie and cookie plus IP. That's our backup for our data, but we use new fingerprinting technology, which Adam's run workshops and tells you guys about that a bit further. He designed it also. He can explain it in much more fine print than I. But in the end, the biggest aspect is the accuracy and the match rates. And if you can see, compared to some of the other competition, we are 2 or 3xing them in a lot of these categories. The accuracy and the match rates are what leads to weaponization, monetization, and ultimately conversions for the end business owner. So I think this graphic is a very good one. And I'm going to get an updated one because this one's now more than 6 months old. And I know we have a newer one. I just didn't have it at my fingertips where I had this one. So I'm going to dig that up and make sure I share that with all of you guys. But I think that's a bigger differentiator. The other one I would say that I sent to you guys is we are also a one-stop data shop. So not only can we just do in-market audiences, we can also do identity resolutions. Not only can we do that, we can also enrich your data, your existing email list, and get you the other data points so we can now target that person not only in email but also in ads, SMS, social media outreach, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll see there's only 2 companies on this whole checklist that offer a yes across all avenues, meaning we can have first-party data. We have intent-based in our data, in our graph. We have the identity resolution, and we can do multi-channel reactivation, meaning ads, email, SMS, cold calling, social media, multiple channels. Right. The only other one that has 4 yeses across the board is LiveRamp, but their accuracy and match rates are lower than ours. And I don't know about you guys, but if anyone that has been on a call with LiveRamp, and I'd love to give you the microphone and let you speak to this if you have been, you're not going to get into a LiveRamp data plan for less than 5 figures. So I'm sure a lot of you guys got into Audience Lab for less than 10 grand up front or less than 10 grand a month. For any of LiveRamp's packages where you get all access to all these features, you're going to be paying 5 figures and up. Outside of that, no other company can offer all the same features and kind of be a one-stop data shop. I've actually had a lot of clients that have told me, hey, Ray, I use Zoom Info for this, but I use Pearl Diver for this. It's like, hey, I can provide both at a higher accuracy and a cheaper cost. So those are the things I'm constantly pointing out in terms of comparison to other data providers. Hopefully you guys found that stuff helpful, and I'll make sure I drop the graphics in the school channel if you guys didn't already have that call where I sent it to you.
Okay, that's awesome. Ray, one clarifying question.
Sure,
How did you calculate the per profile cost at a penny?
It's actually 1.5 cents per cost,
Yeah.
but how did we calculate that is based off of how many people or profiles you can get per list as opposed to your enrollment cost. So let's just say you can get 500,000 people or profiles per list, and you're paying us $2K a month for your monthly subscription fee into Audience Lab. When you do that math, depending on what program you're in, some of you guys are in higher tiers where you get access to more. But if you just take that math of I could give you 500,000 profiles and you pay me X amount, that comes down to about 1.5 penny per resolution or per profile.
Okay. Yeah.
Hopefully that makes sense. I didn't want to overcomplicate the math.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Thank you.
No problem. Shit, we only have 10 minutes left because the Q&A went almost the whole section. That's great. Let me go into a couple of things I wanted to go over, and I'm going to try to streamline these a little quicker because we only have a few minutes left. I'm glad that this went more Q&A, to be honest, because my last few weeks I've been more teaching and talking and lesson, and we get to the Q&A, and I haven't been able to get through it before I go over into my next call. So I'm glad we were able to address these and let you guys go into depth with not just a short little 2-sentence answer or 1-paragraph question. Go back and forth, make sure I'm answering all your questions in full, and make sure they're specific to your situation and such. What I did want to bring up today, oh, excuse me. What I did want to bring up and kind of cover today is similar to all the scripts I give you. Specifically, I'm going to focus on the sales call or the demo call script. So it'd either be number 5 on this document or number 9, our newer script. Now, in conjunction with that, we have kind of a more visual learning tool that I think is really, really helpful. And the big similarities between this visual tool and the documents are really the things in purple, which are the different, I want to say, pillars or phases of a sales call. Now, all the questions we ask in the specific and the terminology, those might all change depending on our offer, our niche, our industry, what questions we ask. But what shouldn't change are the main phases of how we do a sales call and the main structure to it, right? So we're always going to start with, hopefully we're doing preparation prior to the call and learning a little about our prospect, their business, the form they filled out to book, whatever that is. This part, the preparation, kind of ties back into the part of the lesson. I'm not going to get it to cover today because I'm short on time. So I'm not going to spend too much on that. I think we all know what call preparation is for a sales call. I'd like to spend more time on another lesson, and maybe we'll dive into more of that next week about how we gather that information and where it should be stored, and how in our sales process we're gathering more information from the client so we can prep more thoroughly, right? But basically, we want to prep, and the opening section and seconds, not sections, seconds. We want to do a quick little intro, break the ice, and then we want to get into the gathering information phase, right? We might call that the intel phase, the discovery phase, gathering intel, all kinds of different names for it. And I've always said this is the most important part of any sales call, is getting this right. If we've gathered the info right and assessed their situation, once we get into all the rest of the segments of the call that I'm going to run through here, that all becomes more and more relevant, and it all gels together into a cohesive sales call that makes sense and has the prospect kind of agreeing and seeing the value right through. If we screw up in the discovery, the gathering intel phase, it kind of just puts strain on every other bucket or phase below this in the sales process. I always like to say, guys, I like about 6 to 8 data points in the intel or the discovery phase. What do I mean by 6 to 8 data points? 6 to 8 primary questions that I need to ask and data I need to extract to then understand if they're a good fit, right? Kind of like a triage call. The objective of the discovery call is to take it a step further than you did in triage, dive in and rehash any information you got and dive a little deeper. So what I mean by 6 to 8 data points is mine are always, I should say always, kind of 2-part questions when I do this. So you might look at it as even more than 6 or 8 data points if I'm getting more than one specific data with each question. I more mean 6 to 8 questions that we need to ask to gather all the data. So mine might start with, okay, welcome to the call, break the ice, right, whatever. Hey, we're going to start off, Bob, with me just asking you a few questions so I can really assess and diagnose your business, know where you're at, and that's going to help me make the best recommendations and suggestions as we wind down toward the end of the call. Is that fair, Bob? Yeah, sure, Ray. I get it, man. I get where you're coming from. If you don't know my business, how can you give me the best recommendation? Great, I agree. So number 1, who do you serve, Bob, and what do you charge for your services? Well, Ray, we serve the roofing community, and we currently charge $2,000 base retainer to run their Facebook ads. Great. How many clients are you currently working with, and how many do you have the bandwidth? How many would you like to be in a perfect world? Ray, we're currently working with 10 clients, and ideally, I would like to double that at minimum. We at least have that bandwidth now, and I can grow the bandwidth to take on more clients when we get there, but we're not at that breaking point. So I'd say we can double in our clients. Okay, great. So you have the capability and the bandwidth to take on more clients and fulfill on that, correct? Yeah, 100%, Ray. Great. Well, tell me, you currently have 10 clients. What did we do to acquire them? What was our acquisition channel? Well, I did a combination of hitting my warm market and some cold email campaigns. All right, tell me, what was successful and what did you like about that process? Well, I like that it was free and I didn't have to spend money on ads, and that it was kind of within my control. All right, great. And what didn't you like about that process? What I didn't like was it was a lot of manual labor, a lot of testing different email campaigns, and I had to make sure I was active in there responding to the emails. So there was a lot of time and a lot of testing. I would like to expedite that and speed up that process. Okay, great, right? So that's what I'm talking about. You need to figure out what those 6 or 8 questions really make up your discovery phase and really help you get the right information and gather the proper intel so you can assess the business and then get into recommendations. So that's my quick little spiel on that. And that was probably longer than I should have. Then we're going to get into finding problems, which we're probably going to talk about in a little discovery. If you've asked a question or they've already given you the problem and we know the main problem, we're not going to re-ask the question. Number one here, hey, what's the problem, Bob, and why aren't we getting clients? I just told you when you asked me above, right? I'm not going to reiterate that. I'm going to say, I'm not going to re-ask that. I'm going to reiterate it saying, hey, Bob, based on what you just told me, it sounds like the number one problem is with your acquisition is there's too much manual labor and you need to speed up that process so you're not tied in it all the time. Is that fair to say? Yeah. Okay, Bob. Well, how long has that been a problem? What do you think's causing that problem? Why haven't you outsourced that yet? Have you looked into spending money on marketing and putting more money behind your marketing, like meta ads, as opposed to the manual labor? And if you weighed the pros and cons, so now I want to get into again the root problem. We got a symptom level problem. Hey, it's too slow and it's too manually involved. I'm too manually involved. It's too time, extensive. So that's the again symptom level or service problem. Then I'm going to ask a couple questions to dig in and see how long it's been a problem. What's causing that problem? Why haven't we solved it yet? And get to what I like to call the root problem, right? So I think that's very, very important to understand. And then impact a problem, and that's a more high level one. I think for sales reps that feel like they're more sophisticated or established. And I think this is much more important in a more B2C emotional sale than an analytical sale. But I still think it's a great question where you could say, all right, Bob, so you've been having this problem. This is what's causing it. It's been happening that long. What impact is this problem having on you, both professionally and personally? I'd love to hear a little about that. And they might tell you, I've been stressing out. I've been pulling out my hair. I've been losing sleep. I'm not making enough revenue to, take my wife on the vacation I promised, whatever. But we want to get more of that impact so we can tie them back to that later. And then we get into solutions. Before I ever dive into talking about my solutions, which is what most sales reps do, and scripts years ago always told you, diagnose their positioning, meaning a good discovery or gathering intel phase, dive a little deeper into the problem and the impact of problem, and then start talking about your solutions and how you solve that problem. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I found it much more effective to say, hey, Bob, if you were to partner with a marketing and an advertising or data company to help you, get yourself out of the manual labor, to help you expedite and speed up this process, what does an ideal solution look like for you? Right. And then I just sit back and shut up and let them start to talk about what they're looking for in terms of getting their time back, how they envision this, how they see it, freeing themselves up to do other things in the company, just asking them what an ideal solution looks like for them. Now, the only time that can backfire, guys, and I'll tell you how to get out of this one, is sometimes this will backfire, right? You'll say that and they'll say, well, Ray, I'm not really sure what an ideal solution looks like because I'm not the expert. That's kind of you. I was hoping you could tell me that. Oh, happy to tell you what our solution and what I feel like. Let me rephrase the question for you, Bob. Just close your eyes and let's just visualize you've hired somebody or outsourced this or went with an agency or a data source to solve this problem. It's now 90 days down the road. Everything is running swimmingly in your business. What's changed in your daily operations and how much more efficiently are things running? So just have them close their eyes and envision and future pace it. And they're going to tell you things like, this is what I've heard, guys. Well, Ray, once this is running, I have AI doing my outreach. I have ads running, so I'm putting more money behind it, and it frees up a lot more time to work with my clients and develop new products and new offers. Great. So if I was able to show you a solution that could free up your time, add in automations and add in technology, AI with a little ad spend, and let you focus more on the creative and the fulfillment side of your business, do you think that would help you grow to where you want to? Yes, 100%. That's what I need. So now I know when I get into my pitch, I'm going to gear it all around the aspects or the deliverables and the features within my my solution, my pitch, my offer that are really going to highlight exactly those things he just talked about. So again, this whole little visual board, if you see it, goes hand in hand with the phases or the pillars in our script. Break the ice, introduction, gathering intel, discovery phase, find problem, impact a problem, solution, impact of solution, a little bit of a tie down. Hey, if you had this now, You know, would there be anything that would stop you from moving forward if I could show you a solution to this today and I had it fit your budget? Well, yeah, Ray, if you showed me an ideal solution, it fits my budget, and I saw a clear path to, you know, getting to that end result we just talked about, yeah, I'd be willing to move forward, right? So I get to that before I ever get into the pitch. And then sometimes I even get into the constant consequences of inaction or not moving forward, which is covered in a little more depth in the script. Then I get to the pitch, which again, guys, is totally different from the price. You're never going to see price when I'm talking about the pitch. Here, where I'm talking about the pitch, that's the program service breakdown. That's where I'm going to customize it and show him the solutions and the deliverables or features that I offer that are going to solve problem number 1 and 2 that he's told me earlier. Then I'm going to do a temp check and see where he's at on a scale of 1 to 10. Hey, now that I've laid out that solution for you, Bob, would it just tell me 1 to 10? 1, Ray, you're ugly. Let's hang up now. 10, I need this solution embedded in my business yesterday. Where do you fall on that spectrum, right? I want to get a temp check and make sure there, for me, I go for an 8 or higher before I'll ever go any further and get into pricing, and just make sure that they're bought in and they see the effectiveness and applications for this solution and the benefit. And then we start to get into price, and that comes down to here. So I thought that was a really good visual aid. I just wanted to walk you through and share with you. And again, you'll see it very much over here as well. This is very similar. We might have just put it in a little different terminology or verbiage. But connection phase, breaking the ice, connecting, situational awareness, that's the discovery phase, problem, solution, commitment, consequent of not taking action, and then we get into present. So again, I'm going to walk through the other visual aid and the parts of the sales process that would lead to you gathering the info and help you prep. I'll dive more into that last week because I ran short on time here today. And we covered quite a bit of Q&A, but hopefully you find that was helpful. The 2 people that I spoke to and taken notes on specifically, I'll be making sure I get you all the information to book that call with me that for whatever reason missed it. I'm going to go do an update in school and drop those graphics that I shared with everybody and say, hey, on today's call, I talked about a couple images I think you guys can use in your sales calls or presentations. Here they are. And then really quick before I wrap up, hopefully you guys have 30 more seconds. Let me just show you in our school community. Toolbar out of my way. Thank you, Zoom. And let's bring up the right browser. Now, in our school community, if you guys ever want to see my posts, this is where the image I'm going to be posting, or this workshop replay, or any of my past week's workshop replay. When you go into these main sections here, it says all announcements, office hours. Click more, click on sales, and all of my posts and everything I do. So I'm sure we're going to see 7 days ago, there's a post from me because I post every 7 days when I do one of these. 7 days ago, today's DaaS Sales Workshop. And we'll see one 7 days before that. I'm normally in here posting my workshop replays, but anything I cover on these calls that I say I'm going to go drop to you guys, they're going to be in the sales channel here within school. So you can go and find them. And I'll have both those things posted later today. Those couple images I referenced, as well as this replay once it's all converted and uploaded. Cool. All right, that's all I have to cover. I'm already late for my 4 p.m. Eastern meeting, so I'm going to dive over to that, and we will catch up again here next week. Same time, same bad channel. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.